Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, please do me a favor right here, right now, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and make it your own on our website, thewatchbox.com. And today, we discuss a Seiko diver big enough for the wrist of Gojira himself. This is the Seiko Prospex High-Beat MarineMaster Pro 1000 SBEX005, a timepiece from the 2017 model year that's designed to offer pro-level diving capability in a Seiko that features a number of Grand Seiko grade features. 48.2 millimeters in diameter. You can see my 16 centimeter circumference wrist is probably the smallest wrist that can wear this one with a measure of security. There is no proportion, as this is an article of professional diving equipment or a sign of solidarity with those who are professional divers. If you're an enthusiast of diving tech, this is definitely for you, but make no mistake, with a case thickness of 19.7 millimeters, this isn't fitting underneath any kind of a suit whatsoever, not even a spacesuit cuff. Now the watch is broad lug-to-lug, but maybe not as large as I expected at 53.2 millimeters, but if you include the solid end links of this bracelet, and what solid end links, you wind up with a width across the wrist of a meaty 58 millimeters. So you got to think IWC big pilot span across the wrist. Now the timepiece does feature an impressive array of peripherals, starting with a bracelet that is built to last. I've extended the dive clasp to demonstrate how you can actually do this while it's still on the wrist, a unique feature shared with the Rolex Deep Sea. The timepiece has a bracelet that starts with the riveted end links. Those are probably the most imposing end links I've ever seen. They also feature a remarkably artful and distinctive pattern about the links themselves. This is a 3-link, but it looks nothing like the Rolex Oyster that's the dominant in the space. And you can see that's because the intermediate links feature sharp geometries that are downsloped and polished. Polished outboard with satin finished flanks and satin centers on the middle links. Of course, this being a Seiko or Grand Seiko titanium bracelet to match a titanium case, pin sleeves, and double pin sleeves at that, rather than screws are employed. Once again, that clasp featuring a lever lock system such that you can actually open it and close it while it's still on the wrist, so you don't have to worry about removing this diving clasp while you are in a marine environment, which can all too often lead to a dropped watch and then it's lost to Davy Jones. Open it up and you can see how the ratchet system works. You just pull these two triggers up and it goes out, pull them up and it goes back in. The clasp has both trigger actuation and a clamshell, so it has a double locking mechanism. Very impressive. This thing is staying closed. And for fine tuning, you can see that there are a number of alternate anchoring points for the bracelet. Moving back to the case, I mentioned you get Grand Seiko features, and well, starting with the clasp and continuing with the Zaratsu tinplate polished case flanks, you can see that this is far more than your standard Seiko. Yes, it's a brutal diving instrument, but at the same time, it is not without art or artistry, as the tinplate system known as Zaratsu polish in the Grand Seiko world is done manually, executed by hand pressure, eye, and experience, pushing the side of the case against a tin milling wheel. And somehow, despite the fact that this is done manually and by hand pressure, it manages to be millimetrically identical from side to side, right down to the span and spacing and sharpness of the bevels. Now let's move out a little bit, improve our focus. So the case form is anything but a standard Rolex slab. You can see just how much more articulated, fluted, faceted, and hand-finished it is than something like a Deep Sea. Moving to the slash-cut knurling of the bezel, we may as well talk about that bezel because it's an impressive piece. All of the indices and calibrations are executed by ablating them with a laser, so they're quite sharp, quite crisp. The knurling is deep and easy to grip. It actually has a more positive detent than most Seiko and Grand Seiko divers I felt. Seiko usually goes for refinement over sharp detents, but here the detent is just a little bit crisper than usual. Line up the index with the minute hand. Now you've got an impromptu 0 to 60 minute timer. I always prefer a dive bezel to a chronograph. I rarely time things longer than an hour. Chronographs rarely have a minutes register longer than 30, and there are no downstream maintenance costs of a chronograph mechanism when you've just got a dive bezel. You will note that the dial is deep. There's a dished ray-hot outboard, but all of the indices are applique rather than printed, and this is an impressive dial for an accessibly priced watch. So you also have a date window between 4 and 5, and oversized hands with satin finish and polished periphery. These are all graced with Seiko's Lume, and there will be a great lume shot at the end. Note how the sapphire, and it is a sapphire, is recessed below the plane of the bezel for absolute security against shattering and blows. The crown off-center to allow ambidextrous use, but also to prevent it from digging the wrist and to further shield it without having to implement a bulky crown guard apparatus that sits between the horn of the lug and the mid case in a little bit of a well or recession. Now, this is an impressive piece for a number of reasons. First, 1,000 meter, yes, it's pro diver, but it also has such sophisticated seals and tight manufacturing tolerances that it does not require the helium escape valve seen on Omega's and Rolex products with a comparable diving depth. So the helium can't get in, therefore it need not get out. On the inside of the case, another Grand Seiko advantage is that there is a 9S85 based, that is the Grand Seiko movement. The Seiko equivalent is called the 8L55, and it's used here. It's based on the 9S85. So 55-hour power reserve, automatic winding. It features 37 joules. It features a quick set date. It features stop seconds or hacking. And it does have that 36,000 vibration per hour beat rate, which gives it that smoother second sand sweep, 10 beats per second, like what you'll see on a Zenith El Primero chronograph. So it's a sophisticated caliber that comes from the Grand Seiko family. So too does the clasp design. So too does the Zaratsu polish. This is a lot of Seiko MarineMaster. I have to say, all things considered, this is one of the most accomplished dive watches you're going to accomplish at any price, regardless of who you are, whether you're Rolex, Seiko, Grand Seiko, Omega, high horology or low. This is a complete diving tool. You can make it your diving tool and throw it in your dive locker on the watch box. And before you do, keep in mind that this watch has a more august pedigree than you might imagine, as the design for this piece was actually executed by Nobuhiro Kosugai, who designed the Fugaku tourbillon for Crador. So this one is downright patrician in its lineage. Also, this timepiece features both anti-fog technology internally, so there's an anti-fog coating inside the crystal, and it features DiaShield externally to harden it against damage that might be caused by scratches, abrasions, scuffs, or even dents. Finally, and this is a lot to take in, the watch features 16,000 ampere per meter anti-magnetism because of a feature that might be difficult to see at first glance. I'm going to try to get it in focus, and there you can see it. There's a iridescent blue lacquer coating over a soft iron dial that features a wave pattern, and this wave pattern is beautifully embossed on the dial, only visible at certain angles, and it's one of the most subtle refinements of a watch that is in almost every other respect brutal. This timepiece, a study in contradictions, high and low horology, brutality and detail, delicate detail at that, make it yours on the watch box. And we're back with the SBEX005 Lume in-house Lume by Seiko. Lume so loud you can almost hear it. Rock your world with this watch on the watch box.